Good morning, students. Welcome to the fourth class of biology on the chapter How do organisms reproduce? In the previous classes, we have discussed about the asexual mode of reproduction. In today's class, I am going to take up the topic sexual mode of reproduction. So let us begin with sexual mode of reproduction. So first we will define what is sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is a mode of multiplication in which the young ones are produced through the process of formation and fusion of gametes. It is usually biparental, that is, it involves the cooperation of two sexually mature individuals, a male and a female. Sexual reproduction is an improvement over asexual mode as it improves the heredity, increases variations and prevents overcrowding. There are some basic features of sexual reproduction. So let's discuss some of them. Now firstly, it is a biparental mode. That means the sexual reproduction commonly involves two different mature individuals called the parents. There is a male parent bearing the male sex organs and a female parent bearing the female sex organs. Such organisms are called unisexual. However, most plants and some lower animals bear both the sex organs and they are known as hermaphrodite. The second characteristic is that meiosis occurs in this mode, that is, meiotic cell division, which reduces the number of chromosomes to half, happens over here. The condition is called haploid. Meiotic division occurs once in the life of all sexually reproducing organisms. It produces a lineage of haploid cells, and the animals it takes at the time of gamete formation or gametogenesis. Next, we talk about the gamete formation, which is also a basic feature of sexual reproduction. The reproductive cells or the sex cells that take part in the sexual reproduction is the gametes. And in lower organisms with simple body designs, gametes are generally similar. But in higher organisms with complex body designs, there are two types of gametes, smaller motile male gamete and the larger non-motile female gamete. The male gamete or the sperm and the female gamete or the ovum, as it is called. The ovum generally contains a large amount of stored food, which is required for the subsequent development of the embryo from the zygote. Next comes fertilization. The two haploid gametes, that is the sperm and the egg, fuse during the act of fertilization to form a diploid cell called zygote. Fertilization restores the diploid number of chromosomes in the life cycle. Depending upon the place of fusion of gametes, fertilization can be of two types, external and internal. External fertilization occurs outside the body of the female, for example frogs or fishes, and internal one takes place within the body of the female, like your birds, mammals, reptiles, insects, etc. And after fertilization there is zygote formation. So the zygote is a single cell diploid structure and it develops into a mature individual. All the cell divisions are mitotic. Next we have the variations happening in sexual reproduction. As the number of variations in the population mainly arises due to chance separation of chromosomes at the time of meiosis, or it can be due to crossing over during meiosis, or it can be due to mutations or defective DNA replication. So these are some of the causes due to which variations can happen in the sexual mode of reproduction. Now, let us talk about some of the significances of sexual mode of reproduction. The first significance is that lot of variations are caused. And how these variations are caused? Because of the reshuffling of the chromosomes, crossing over, sexual reproduction brings about variation in almost all characters so that no two individuals look alike. Variations are essential for recognition, individuality, and competitiveness. They may not protect individuals under adverse conditions, but survival of the species depends upon pre-adaptive variations. Then, better adaptability is achieved as due to sexual reproduction, organisms are able to adapt to changes in the environment. It maintains the vigor and vitality of the individuals, and the harmful traits are suppressed because of the reshuffling of the gene pairs that occurs during the gamete formation and fusion. Then the genetic changes bring about lot of evolutionary material, that is, they actually play an important part in evolution of new forms of life. And due to the flow of genes amongst the individuals during sexual reproduction, a uniformity of population is maintained, whereby there is a broad resemblance of all the individuals with one another. Now let us talk about sexual reproduction in case of plants. So, in the flowering plants, all steps of sexual reproduction occur within the specialized reproductive organs, which is the flower. So, we can say flower is a condensed shoot which is specialized to carry out sexual reproduction. We can say that it is a specialized condensed reproductive shoot of the flowering plants on which are inserted the essential reproductive parts. It is borne over a stalk or the pedicel. Now let us talk about the various parts of a flower. The flower has a broad base which is called as the thalamus or the receptacle. The thalamus bears 4 types of floral organs: the sepals, the petals, the stamens, and the carpels. Sepals and petals have no direct role in sexual reproduction. They are called as the accessory or non-essential floral organs. The stamens and the carpels are the essential floral organs as they take part in the process of sexual reproduction. So what are these sepals? They are green leaf-like parts in their outermost circle of the flower, and the petals are the colorful parts of the flower just lying internal to the sepals. Next we have the reproductive parts of the flower. The stamen and the carpel, which is also known as the pistil, are the reproductive parts of the flower. The stamen is the male reproductive part. It produces the pollen grains in the anther, which contains the male germ cell. The pistil or the carpel is the female reproductive part. it produces ovules in the ovary, which contains the female germ cell. Now if we look at this diagram, we can see the different reproductive organs of the flower, the stamen and the carpel. The stamen, as I have already said, is the male reproductive part of the plant. It produces the pollen grains and it is basically made up of two parts, the anther and the filament. So this is your anther. There are two lobes over here and this is the stalk-like structure which is called as the filament. Each stamen has a slender stalk called the filament and a terminal knob-like swelling which is the anther. Anther has two lobes joined together by a connective. Each anther lobe has two long pollen sacs, so that there are 4 pollen sacs in an anther. They produce yellowish colored powder of haploid pollen grains through meiotic division of their diploid mother cells. At the time of liberation, a pollen grain may have up to 3 cells, a tube cell or vegetative cell and 2 male gametes. Now let us talk about the carpel. The carpel or the pistil or the gynoecium forms the central female reproductive organ of the flower. Flowers with one carpel is called monocarpous, and if the number of carpels are more, then it is called as polycarpous. The free unit is called as the pistil, whether it is simple or compound. Each carpel has a basal swollen ovary, a stalk-like style, and a terminal receptive part, what is called as the stigma. Stigma may be sticky, hairy, or feathery to pick up the pollen grains, and it also provides substratum for the germination of the pollen. Ovary contains ovule in one or more chambers. This is the ovary and it contains ovules in one or more chambers or loculi. Each ovule has 1 or 2 coverings or integuments, a pore, what we call as the micropyle, and internally an oosphere or egg in the embryo sac. The embryo sac has actually a 3-celled egg apparatus, that is the oosphere or female gamete and 2 synergids, a central cell with 2 polar nuclei or single secondary nucleus and 3 antipodal cells. So that is the description of the embryo sac of the reproductive organ, that is the ovary of the flower. So that's all for today. So here we complete the description of the various parts of a complete flower. So in the next class, we will discuss about how fertilization takes place in the flower. That's all for now. Thank you.